All right, now we get into the other fun stuff, the limitations of the machine. When you're familiarizing yourself with it, you need to be able to read these labels. You see this one's starting to be damaged. This is because this is a high traffic area. It's getting hard to read. If we look up at the front, I'll show you. We've got the same label again up here. Notice there are two areas on the label. With this retracted, this stage will kick out. I'll show you that in a moment. But with it retracted in its configuration that you see here, the weight of the occupants and the equipment is a total of 500 pounds. Seems like a lot, but a couple of guys, some tools, equipment, you can exceed that pretty quick if you're not paying attention. We'll use this equipment to raise up ductwork, to support loads. Must be careful never to exceed the 500-pound weight limit. In addition to it falling, collapsing, breaking, you might just get stranded as well. Both are bad, right? If you're stranded and don't have a way to get help up to you to free that weight off of the lift, you can be in a real bind. All right, so that's the weight in the basket. What about this one on the right? This one gets forgot about a lot. 100 pounds max. 500 pounds in the basket, but this 100 pound, that's side to side, which on the ground, 100 pounds doesn't get you very far. But when you extend this up 20, 30 feet, 100 pounds is more than capable of causing this to move and even tip over. What could cause that 100 pounds? Well, myself and my coworker really pulling on something from inside the basket, trying to lift or fit something together, that can happen. Heavy wind load can happen. Also, especially if we're outside, you can have that wind or a storm come through. Building a greenhouse around this to protect you from the elements when doing your work outside sounds like a really good idea, but it presents additional hazards and is considered an equipment modification. So before you go and build a structure around yourself and encase it in plastic, know that you need to get that cleared with the manufacturer to make sure that that's okay. They've probably got some options available that you'd have to purchase. But much like a scaffold, if you've encased that in plastic, you've created a giant sail. So a 5-mile-an-hour wind, which you wouldn't even notice on a normal day just walking around, depending on how large of a surface area we make, that can be more than enough to tip this over. All right, now I also mentioned in that label, we've covered the side load forces, we've covered the basket forces down with the occupants and equipment. There was a grayed out, kind of hard to read from a distance, but it says 250 pounds. 250 pounds, and it's got an arrow pointing to this stage. I'm going to get up in there and show you what that looks like. Also, when you access the lift, always make sure you're facing forward and maintaining 3 points of contact, just like when you're going to use a ladder. When you enter the basket, always make sure you fasten the safety chain or door. Purpose of that is to serve as the mid-rail in case I were to fall. Now, I don't think I would fall out of that spot back there. How easy would it be to leave that down? Nobody intentionally falls, okay? It's an accident for a reason. People call it that. It's an unintended, unplanned event. I mentioned side loads, driving the lift, and I'll run over a very small obstruction down below that could cause this whole lift to tip, or another machine bumps me. There's a lot of equipment, even on this smaller job site. We've got mini excavator inside, a skid steer, other lifts. It doesn't take much to cause a loss of balance and fall back through this if this isn't here to protect you. All right, moving up. I mentioned the stage, the kick out. Now how they deploy may be different on different equipment. You see this one has a safety latch, all right? Gotta love our safety latch. Look how nice. That's remarkable because a lot of times it doesn't kick out so easily because there'll be equipment, tools, debris, a bunch of construction junk and scraps left below. This company's done a great job keeping their lifts clean. That's something you also need to check is the cleanliness, the housekeeping of your machine before you jump in there. You need to take the time to clean it out because that would have made this a difficult process, would have made it more likely for me to tip as well. All right, so And on that label, 250 pounds with the arrow pointing out to this stage, 250 pounds of the occupant or operator, in this case me, plus any equipment I would have on this section of the lift. Right? It still doesn't add an extra 250 and this stay 5 for 750. That's not how this works. It's still a total of 500 for the entire machine, with no more than 250 of that out on this section. Very important to understand that, because the purpose of this kick out is to help you get even more room to work up here, more nimble to be able to stretch out over an obstacle below you, for example. But you can't have your buddy come out here with you and hold something up. We're going to tip the machine over, break or damage the equipment, and hurt ourselves in the process.